Warren Barton with Open Source TV, and I'm here in Provo, Utah, at the Utah Open Source Conference in 2007. And I'm here with Dax Kelson of Guru Labs. And Dax, tell me a little bit about Guru Labs. What is it you guys do?
Guru Labs, we are a Linux training company. We started the company up 8 years ago to teach Linux classes. At the time, there was no other training companies that did Linux. It was all about either Microsoft Windows or NetWare, but we sort of had caught the vision early. I'd been using Linux for a long time before that, that people would be wanting some Linux training. So with my college friend of mine, Brian Croft, I started up Guru Labs to teach Linux classes. So
now, before Guru Labs, you owned an ISP?
That's right. I'd used Linux in college, actually. UTOSC State was where I first discovered Linux, and I actually got one of your books.
One of my books?
One of your books on how to use VMS.
Wow.
And I'd used Linux as a user, but it was the ISP I started in '96 called Internet Connect in Salt Lake City. We offered dial-up access and we did web hosting, but at the time it was Red Hat 4.2, and we had like Solaris. Solaris, I think at the time was 2.5. We had Ultra Spark. So had some Solaris boxes and some Red Hat boxes, and I was using Linux to make money with, and it was pretty exciting. The whole ISP business, very different than training,
right?
But very exciting. A lot of networking, a lot of programming. It was kind of cool.
So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about certifications. That's another thing that you guys do. What types of certifications are most valuable for people who are looking to become certified in open source technology?
The first open source certification would be that existed was the Red Hat Certified Engineer, the RHCE program.
So Red Hat was the first one to offer certification?
Yeah, they were. And it was unique compared to most IT type certifications in that it was a hands-on lab-based exam. And it's it's like a 6-hour exam where you sit down and you have to prove your mettle at the keyboard. So there's problems you have to fix, and you have to configure software, and there's a time limits. So it's sort of a thrilling exam for a lot of people.
So when did you get your RHCE?
I actually got my RHCE while I was still doing my ISP.
Oh, okay.
Internet Connect. The Internet Connect was one of 4 North American support partners for Red Hat. Red Hat was pre-IPO, so Red Hat would get consulting requests, and they couldn't handle the load, so they'd give out these requests out to these North American support partners.
Right.
And Internet Connect was one of them. And when Red Hat announced the RHC program, I thought that if I could get myself and some of the other guys at my ISP certified, then we'd have a leg up with the proposals. So I flew out to attend the very first class that they ever held at Red Hat's headquarters in North Carolina. Kind of interesting story there. It was me and 5 other guys in this training class. I was a student. I'd been using Linux for a long time, and we're getting ready to take the exam on Friday. Meanwhile, back here in Utah, my wife is at home. She's pregnant, but she's like 8 months pregnant, so it shouldn't be a problem normally. But she calls me Wednesday morning and says that she's going into labor, and I was like, "Oh, come on, babe! Like I have my exam on Friday. Can't you postpone?" And she's like, "Get home right now." So I checked the flights, and the first flight I could take out was that evening, and so I asked Red Hat if there's any way I could take the exam that day. So instead of me taking the exam on Friday, they gave the exam to me on Wednesday.
Wow.
And so I took the exam as fast as I could, and I ran to the airport, and I flew back here to Utah, and it was a false alarm. So my daughter was born the next week.
Okay.
So she's 8.5 now.
So
and,
how did you do on the exam?
Actually, I aced it. I got 100% on it.
And this means, were you the first?
Yeah.
The first Red Hat certified engineer?
My certificate number is like 0001.
Wow.
But it's nothing that I did per se. Mostly my daughter being anxious to arrive. But.
Okay. Now, tell me about some of the businesses that use your Guru Labs training. what type of businesses are coming to Guru Labs for training? And more importantly, I'd like to know how that's changed over the years.
It's the customers that come take the training classes have initially were, I think, a lot of smaller companies who were maybe, but this is like in the early 2000, 2001, who were looking to save money. And I think the one thing that's definitely changed over the years is that you have now, Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies, like very large companies with huge IT departments who are sending their employees out to take training classes. And you see it from all walks of life. Historically, a lot of the people who were taking classes, they were like old Unix admins who wanted to get up to speed on Linux. But now you see more Windows converts who are like they're actually migrating from Windows Server platforms to Linux. So that's another change I've seen is that. And some desktops too. In the past, I would say year, you get more people who are interested in Linux for desktop deployments, not just for mail servers and web servers and that sort of thing.
Now, when you teach the class, everybody uses a Linux desktop in class. So you have people who maybe have experience with Linux on the server, but using the desktop was not something they ever expected they would enjoy or find useful and productive.
I think most people who attend the classes are these IT professionals, and I think a lot of them have some desktop experience, so usually that is not much of an issue. It's interesting now, you actually see some people who have never used Windows, which I never used to see.
Oh, wow.
So you have people who, before you'd say, when you're teaching the class, you'd make an analogy like, this is how you do it in Windows, now you do it this way in Linux, but people will say, well, I've never touched Windows before. Which to me, maybe I'm too old, but it's interesting seeing the latest generation who just have done Linux from the get-go and they never were converts from something else. They've always been Linux.
Interesting. Now, I have a note here that you've made contributions to open source projects that you've used their software, and so I think that is probably the mark of a good open source user is that they contribute back, and you've done that, and you've submitted patches to the Linux kernel. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you submitted to the kernel?
Nothing major,
And it was accepted, right?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
It was accepted. It was a minor patch. I tend to. What I use in Linux, I like to contribute back, like you were saying. If I encounter a bug or a problem or want to enhance it, I think it's almost a courtesy, right? They gave me this great software. If I can make a change, make it better, it's almost I feel bad not doing that, right? So, in this particular in the kernel contribution I made, which was again, I would rank it very minor, but I've always been a Trio enthusiast, like the
mobile phones,
the smartphones, and I ordered I think at the time it was a Trio 600.
Okay.
And the day that they became available, I ordered one, and so I was waiting for my new Trio to arrive, and the Trio arrived like in the mail, like I got it, and I stayed up until like 3 o'clock in the morning, modifying both the visor driver in the Linux kernel so that it would work and recognize the Trio, and also modifying the GNOME software so that I could synchronize like my contacts with like Evolution. And so I submitted a patch to I actually sent it right to Linus Torvalds and said it was a minor patch. It wasn't anything major. So this will modify the driver so it'll work with the Trio. And I submitted a patch to the Bugzilla tracker for GNOME. So this will make the GNOME library recognize the Trio as well. And then I was able to, like that night before I went to bed, I was able to sync with my Trio. But
that's neat.
It was kind of cool.
That's neat. Well, again, this is Doran Barton. I'm here with Open Source TV, and we've been visiting with Dax Kelson of Guru Labs. Thank you, and good night.